Ačiū labai for that wonderful reception. I have been in Lithuania now for almost 2 days, but it did not take me long to understand what a wonderful and extraordinary country this is. And I could spend my whole speech today talking about what I learned here, but I just wanted to give you one example of why I came to that conclusion. Because this country, which is now 3 million people, has managed over hundreds of years of occupation and reoccupation, of suppression and oppression, to hold on to the most complicated and difficult to understand language in the world. And the other thing that impressed me was the fact that even after this last occupation in a relatively small number of years, Lithuania is on a track to become a powerful influence in the world. One example of that is that each of you has access to 100 megabits per second internet. In my home, in what is supposed to be an advanced country of the world, the best I can get is 6 megabits per second. So you guys are 15 times better than we are. I'm here under false pretenses. You wanted to see an inventor and an entrepreneur, and you know, those are very risky professions. And I've decided to take a less risky path. I am now become a historical futurist. You may ask, what is a historical futurist? Well, when I talk about history, I talk about a history that is so far back that the people that helped me create that history are either gone or they've forgotten all about it. So nobody is around to dispute my history. And when I talk about the future, I'm talking about a future so far ahead that none of us are going to be there, so I'm unaccountable for that as well. This is the lowest risk profession in the world. So let me start with a little bit of history. For over 100 years, we have been told that the only way that we could communicate was with a wire plugged into a wall. We were trapped in our homes, tied to our desk by this copper wire. And then in 1947, some fellow at Bell Laboratories, which was a part of AT&T in the United States, came up with an idea called cellular. Instead of having a single transmitter in a city, you would have many transmitters spread throughout the city. Some 22 years later, that idea was developed, and AT&T, who at that time were the largest company in the world by any measure, announced that they were prepared to set us free, to give us true mobile communications. And their version of mobile communications was car telephones. We had been trapped in our homes, tied to our desk for 100 years. Now they were going to trap us in our cars. And the second thing that they announced was there was nobody capable of creating this new technology and of running the business because of both their technological capability and the financial capability. They were the only ones that could do this. They were going to have a monopoly. I was at Motorola at that time. We didn't agree with either of those. We thought the world was ready for true freedom, the freedom to be anywhere with a personal handheld device. And we did not believe in monopoly. We believed in competition. We had to do something dazzling to persuade the world, because we were just a little company. We were battling this huge organization. How could we persuade the world that there was an alternative, that somebody could do something better? And that's when I decided that the best way to do that was to actually make a personal handheld telephone, and we did that. And there it is. Not exactly the smallest phone in the world, and it weighed over 2 kilos. The battery life was 20 minutes, so the weight of 2 kilos was not a problem. You couldn't hold it up for 20 minutes. And we succeeded. We jump-started a revolution. What is a revolution? A revolution is when a large number of people have their behavior influenced in some important way. And all of our lives have been changed by the mobile phone. There are more mobile phones in the world today than there are people. That's truly revolutionary. And all of those people who use the phones have had their lives changed in some very important way. And then, after that revolution took hold, and that, by the way, took at least 10 or 12 years before a sizable amount of people had it, and 20 years till you could really call it a revolution, the carriers announced that we were going to have another revolution, and they called that digital. And they came up with this thing called the smartphone. And I'd like to tell you that I do not think that the smartphone is revolutionary, because none of the applications that I know of on the smartphone are really revolutionary in nature. They're convenient, they are entertaining, but they don't really change our lives in that way. I can wait a little while till I see my email. I don't enjoy watching television shows on my handset. So as I say, we've got a wonderful technology, lots of convenience, not revolutionary, but we are about to launch not one or two, but several new revolutions. And I want to spend just a few minutes outlining what I think these revolutions are. Let me first talk about healthcare. I'm sure that it's true in Lithuania, I know it's true in the United States and in other countries, that our healthcare system is broken. It doesn't work for two reasons. One reason is that our whole system is based upon one premise, and that is curing disease. That's a wrong approach. We should be trying to prevent disease because every disease is actionably preventable. If you walk away from this conference with remembering that one phrase, a really powerful one, every disease is actionably preventable. It is possible to stop diseases before they start. And the other reason that our healthcare system is broken is related to that. It is the fact that we are spending a huge percentage of our gross national product. In the United States, we're approaching 20%. I think in Lithuania, you're more efficient than that. But this is a growing number, and it's all focused on curing disease. So how do we fix that? Well, one way to do that is to sense diseases before they become diseases. What do I mean by that? What I mean is that our bodies are full of all kinds of ugly things, viruses, bacteria, toxins, poisons, and yet our immune system fights off these things, creates a balance, and we call that balance being healthy. When the balance fails and these ugly things take over, we call that disease. Suppose that we could sense these diseases before they become diseases and stop them. There is the potential of someday, now remember I said that I'm talking about the long-range future, it may take generations, but someday there is the potential to have a disease-free world. That concept is already taken hold now. There are devices that are available today that are being placed on people. A patch, as an example, that is placed on a person who is susceptible to congestive heart failure. That's one of the biggest causes of death today. And the nature of congestive heart failure is that you start building up fluid in your lungs, and at some point your heart fails. And there are sensors now that will sense that this fluid buildup is occurring, will transmit that information through your mobile phone to a computer somewhere that will recognize this is happening, send a message back to warn you. You take a pill, because it all happens 10 or 12 hours before your heart failure, and you avoid a trip to the hospital and perhaps death. And there are many, many other devices that approach diabetes, obesity. There's a device that you wear that actually measures the difference between your calorie intake and your calorie outgo. So when you sit down at dinner and somebody brings a dessert, this little device will tell you, you already have had too many calories, no dessert for you. So there is the potential to have devices that will be so sensitive, and this is not going to happen for a generation, that they will sense even a few cancer cells and early enough so they can be zapped. This, combined with the ability to create a genome of an individual at very, very low cost, so you can predict for every single person what you're susceptible to, so you know what kind of sensors to put on the person. We are going to have, at some point, a disease-free world. The second problem, I could call it, that mobile phones are going to have a great influence on, it has to do with education. We have run into a situation now where a professor gets up in front of a class, maybe we'll consider this to be a class, and every student in the class has access to the internet. They've all got iPads and tablets, and they know more than the professor does about whatever the topic is. Somehow or other, we have to invert the classroom. There is the potential to teach students with, as an example, games. All the children, as you know today, play these really complex games, and games that require them to go over obstacles. And if they don't succeed in solving these obstacles, they have to go back and do it over and over again. Boy, doesn't that sound like a way of teaching? So we have to learn how to create the kinds of games that will educate people. And now the education can happen because of wireless technology 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Wherever a student is, they can pick up their device and learn. Does this mean that they don't go to school? No. But now the school can do the things that are important, and that is to transfer the wisdom of the teachers, to let them interact with the teachers and other students, the things that can only be done in the classroom, and the learning will happen in a much more efficient way. And the result of that, combined with the fact that these students will all have access to technology that all of us here can only dream about. Their minds will now be expanded with computer memory that it will remember far better than a human being, so they can focus on what a human mind does best, the abstract. And the result of all that is that we are going to have, and you are part of that, a much smarter generation. And I really mean smarter, because this education is going to start when children are very young and their brains are going to develop better. And they shouldn't start feeling too good about it, because it turns out their children are going to be even smarter than they are. A different world of education. But I want to talk about what I think is going to have the most profound influence on society in the coming years, and that has to do with collaboration. And that's something that's already started in a very slow way, but it's already starting to have a powerful influence. If you look at what's happening throughout the world. The riots in Egypt, in Ukraine, which is we all are concerned about, throughout Africa, the Middle East, those riots have nothing to do with religion. They're not political. They have to do with the difference between the haves and the have-nots. There is so much communication in the world today that everybody knows what everybody else has. So a worker in China who is building large-screen television sets would like to have one of these for himself. And he knows about these things. And people now communicate with each other, and they can actually create influences that force governments to do things. I want to give you an example of, by the way, how do you solve the difference between the haves and the have-nots? I mean, the real issue to me is poverty. There is no reason for poverty to exist in any way at all. And there are only two ways to attack the problem of poverty. And one way is, well, you can take the gross national product or the gross world product and redistribute it. Well, that's not very helpful, because when you do that, we all end up being poor. The only way to really solve the poverty problem is to expand what people produce, make us more efficient. And it is my belief that the concept of collaboration, the way we work together, the way we solve problems, the way we make decisions, is going to change dramatically over the next generation or two. And the entire concept of a hierarchical organization is going to disappear. It just does not make any sense to have somebody at the top and an organization chart that is rigid and that doesn't accommodate the fact that people are different from each other. They have different capabilities, and at any time that there is a problem to be solved or a decision to be made, the way it should be done is the right kinds of people should be working on the problem. They should not be working on a problem sitting in a meeting room. They should be working just as we did with education, 24/7, communicating with each other in a really productive and effective way. It's my judgment that this is going to change, is going to expand the capabilities of the world in such a way that poverty will not have to exist. So what's the basic essence of all these things? Why do I think that things can change so much? It's because we are so inefficient at doing things today. We are just learning how to use these tools that we have, and with these tools, we could increase our efficiency by orders of magnitude. It's going to be a wonderful, wonderful world, and when it happens, and when you see it, I hope you'll remember that Marty told you about it first. Thank you very much. Achu.
Thanks so much. We have an incredible amount of questions, so if you don't mind, we'll just grab a seat there and try to answer as many as possible. You want some more? Sure. Please pick your seat. All right.
Here, I'm supposed to be a mobile guy, and here we are sitting down. But
I understand. Some things you have to do even today. So we'll start with two questions. You can answer one or the other at first. The first one is, what mobile phone do you use right now? And what do you think about the Moto X model?
Oh. Well, first of all, you should know that I use whatever the latest phone is because I want to really understand how people are moving. I'm very unhappy with the basic concept of all of today's phones because I think they're too complicated. I think that they are forcing each of us to become engineers and so that we can understand how to use these phones, when in fact the phone should be our slave and should be invisibly standing in the background while we get its benefits. So get to the point, I do use a Moto X now. I also have a Nokia Lumia that I use when I travel in certain places. And the thing I like about the Moto X, and the reason that I got it, I'm not promoting Motorola or Lenovo or whatever company it is now,
Sure.
is when I take it out of my pocket, you can't see it there, but it tells me what time it is. I haven't done a thing. If I wiggle it, it becomes a camera, which it is right now. And it's got many other features that try to anticipate what I want to do without my doing anything. They're still primitive, but they are starting to try to do that. What an ideal phone should do is it should configure itself to you almost automatically. When you buy the phone, it should ask you a few questions, it should examine your habits, and you should not even know the phone is there until you need it. And by the way, have you ever thought about why we call this a phone? I mean, the phone part of it is so infinitesimal that it's, so at some point we need a new name. And by the way, I think a better description of a, you call them mobile phones?
Sure.
Is a personal server. And that's what the phone is going to evolve to. It's going to be a device that connects an individual to the rest of the world with a whole bunch of other devices. The phone itself may end up a little bug behind your ear, or maybe even implanted under your skin. There will be medical devices that you'll wear, fitness devices. So, and all of them will feed information through this personal server into the network where they will end up serving you, being your slave.
Okay, next, a trivia question. What did, and correct me if I'm wrong, what did Joel Engel answer after Martin's words, "I'm calling you from a cell phone, a real handheld portable cell phone"?
What was the first part of that?
What did Joel Engel, was he on the...
Oh, Joel was very silent when I said that. I think he was quite amazed. But, and by the way, today, even today, he doesn't remember that phone call. And if I was him, I probably would have forgotten as well. But it's interesting that AT&T didn't take us very seriously. They were, when you own the world as they did, you don't really pay much attention to the little guy. And their prediction was that there would be, ultimately, in the United States, a maximum of 2 million mobile phones. And it turns out they were right. The maximum number of car telephones in the United States was about 2 million. Today, there are well over 300 million mobile phones, but they are handheld personal portables, and that is what my team and I predicted would happen.
Okay, let's take a step back from the whole technology world, and an interesting question. What do you dream about?
Well, there's some of those things are very personal, so I'm not sure I want to tell you about.
You can disclose some of them. Nobody's listening.
But I think you have heard a lot of what I dream about. I really dream about a better world. There is an alternative to the world that I just described, where there is no poverty, where there is no disease, where people continually, one generation after another, get smarter. And the alternative to that is that we blow each other up. And so my dream is that when people get smart enough, and I run into, when I come to a conference like this, the kinds of people that I meet are the future, not of Lithuania, not of Europe, but of the world. There must be some way that all these smart people can solve those problems. So that's my
dream,
real vision and dream.
Okay. Even if the next generation will be smarter because of the smartphones, will they be more efficient and productive?
That's the whole name of the game is efficiency. Intelligence by itself means nothing. Technology by itself means nothing. Both of those words are meaningful only if they make our lives better. And my way of expressing that is just the way you said it, or whoever asked that question. We are inefficient now. We have the capability of becoming not only more efficient, but exponentially more efficient. I believe that we can continue this improvement in efficiency, whether it's in healthcare, in productivity, in so many different ways, essentially forever. What this means in a simplistic way is the price of the things that you buy potentially will keep going down indefinitely. And what does that mean? It means that we all are becoming more and more wealthy.
Okay.
And if you want to talk about a dream, it is a dream where everybody in the world is wealthy, meaning at the end of the month, when they get their paychecks, if they're working, they have money left over. To me, that's the definition of wealth.
Okay. It's not a secret that Google and the whole NSA scandal, the collection of information that we exchange, phone calls, lots of listening. What's your take on that, the whole NSA scandal just recently?
Excuse me. Well, anybody that thinks that they have privacy today, anybody here think that they have some privacy? Maybe in some parts of your home, but the fact is that everywhere you go, you are being measured, observed, recorded, and stored somewhere. So if this information is used as Google proposes to do,
Sure.
for our benefit, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. But there is another side of the privacy issue, and that has to do with security. And if you guys have been reading about this bleeding heart, I don't know what it's a, what do you call the bleeding heart?
Don't remember.
There is a serious problem of people using the information in a way that is not in our interests. And that's the major, major challenge. That's the kind of war that we should be fighting now against the people who are trying to use the information not in our interest. And that's the kind of thing that governments are supposed to do. Instead of interfering with the way that we conduct our other kinds of businesses, we have to, both the governments and industry have to focus in on the people who are misusing information. And one example we had yesterday is Derek Miller talked about the click farms, where people are distorting the whole intent of what this information collection is. So I don't think Google is a bad guy. I think Google is somebody that has to be watched very carefully so that they're only helping us and not hurting us.
Okay. Let's go back in time, 40 years ago. What was the biggest problem you encountered while creating the first mobile phone?
Well, there were a number of technical problems. The biggest technical problem was what seems very simple. Before we created this phone, the most two-way radios are still used by your police and fire departments and a lot of businesses. You would talk on a phone, you would stop talking, and then you would listen. But you could not talk and listen at the same time. There were, at that time, car telephones that could talk and listen at the same time. But the device that made that possible, a thing called a duplexer, it was a box about this big, about 5 times bigger than an existing cell phone. We had to squeeze that into one corner of this box. So that was a huge problem. But we also had to create a battery. About 1/3 of this unit is a battery. The battery in this unit has about 1/8 of the capability of the battery in your mobile phones today. We had to create an integrated circuit that could accommodate hundreds of radio channels, because this is nothing more than a radio. Radios up until that point had the ability of accessing 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 channels. Now we had to access hundreds of channels. So that was a major channel. Even the antenna, at that time, nobody had ever transmitted at a frequency over 450 megahertz, and this was 1,000 megahertz. Today, 40 years later, we're operating at 2.5 gigahertz, and people are still talking about higher.
Okay. What's your take on the whole fashion, the whole wearables industry? The whole wearables, like Fitbits, Moto 360, for example?
Well, I think it's wonderful. I think it fits right into my prediction about what's going to happen with disease. We are learning how to carry devices that work through the wireless system that let computers on the outside accumulate information, feed us information back so we can change our behavior. And all of those things there, I think we are in very, very early days, and we're going to see a lot of failures and a few successes. The only reason I talk about failures, I have drawers full of wearable devices at home, and I can't even remember which one to put on when I get up in the morning. But sooner or later, these things are going to settle out, and we are going to find, once more, there are technologies that will make our lives better.
Okay. Don't forget, you can still use the hashtag and ask questions. We'll still have some time for that. So you mentioned the future of the mobile phone, that as such, it might change. You mentioned something next to your ear that's just going to be there. Do you think the mobile phone will ever get extinct?
Extinct?
As in, like, disappear?
Well, it's an interesting comment, because people have asked me what I think a good technology is, and there are 3 degrees that you can talk about. A good technology is intuitive, and some of the phones are getting there nowadays. You look at the phone and you know what to do without ever looking at the instruction manual. You've got a long way to go to get to that part. The next level of technology is transparent. It's there, you know it's there, you see it, and it kind of does things automatically. And one example of that is the gear shift on an automobile. You know, this is the most complicated piece of machinery in our culture. I mean, it's electrical, electronic, hydraulic, mechanical, and yet you get into a vehicle and nobody ever looks at the instruction manual, you just pull on the lever. But the really best technology is invisible, just the word that you use. It should be there to help you, to make your life better, to act when it needs to, and you don't even know that it is present. And I think that is quite possible. And my example of that was this, making a phone call. You should be able to just say, I want to talk to so-and-so, and there they are.
Could you summarize the 40 years of a mobile phone evolution, and the importance of it on the society? It's like, very briefly, what it means to have a device like that next to it.
Wow.
These are some interesting questions.
Did somebody ask that question?
Right there.
How dare they ask that question? To summarize 40 years in one sentence. First of all, you should know that there are very few technologies that really happen in less than 20 years. From the time a prototype of something is shown to the time that your neighbor has one. Would anybody like to make a guess at that? How about you? Can you try a guess? How many years? I can't. They told me Lithuanians are bashful, but
sure.
It turns out that there have been studies done, and typically, if you're talking about something really different, not an incremental change to an iPhone, the number is between 18 and 20 years from the time of a prototype to something that everybody has. So in the last 40 years, there really have not been many major changes. Most of the people, as I mentioned before, in the world today use their phones to talk and text. The rich people in the world, which includes everybody in this room, I know you may argue with that, especially with your bosses, but are using these elite devices, smartphones, but the smartphone is still not yet a part of our technology. The most wonderful thing that has happened to me is, personally, is an understanding of what exponential growth means. The fact that you can take a technology and keep improving it, and somehow, year after year, the capability keeps improving and improving, and finally you realize that this can go on forever. That's an optimist view of the world, but I believe, an accurate view of the world. And what that means to me, and what it should mean to everybody in this room, is opportunity. Whatever we are doing, there is a way of making that process better, that device better, the cost lower, the efficiency increased.
There are a lot of people that are sometimes against the whole technology and innovation. There will be always against the whole evolution of it. Do you believe sincerely that more efficiency will make us happier? And should we not slow down instead?
I don't think happiness has anything to do with efficiency. And I guess the answer to the question is, think about first, what is it that makes us unhappy? If you know about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, people that are hungry are not very happy. People that don't feel appreciated are not very happy. And will technology fix those two? It will certainly fix the hunger problem. When it comes to the other problem, I think the technology is irrelevant. We need improvement in our society in other ways. But remember what I said about technology. It's not technology if it doesn't improve the lives of people. So how can you argue that technology will make people worse off?
Okay. Do you know the movie Her? Artificial intelligence, a person falling in love.
Say the name of the movie.
Her. H-E-R.
You know, I've been trying to see that movie, and
But
I know of it.
The
yes.
plot. So the question goes, how long until we have a true personal assistant, just like in the movie Her?
I've been really working very hard on that specific problem lately, and let me suggest that there's nobody in this room, I don't care how young you are, that is going to have to face that problem. The brain is so complex, and so much so that we know every detail of how a neuron works, and we've got 100 billion of these things in our head, and there's nobody has any idea why these neurons result in a thinking process. So if that's the case, how do we ever think that we're ever going to build, at least with the knowledge we have today, a machine that will think the way we do? But I think we are going to creep up on this problem, and I think it's going to happen in a different way than the movie Her. What's going to happen is that we are going to start interacting closer and closer with the technologies we have. And the example, I think I already mentioned this, computers can do a few things better than we can. They can remember better, they can process numbers better, and we do things that computers can't even start to do, and that has to do with abstraction, certain kinds of pattern recognitions that computers have difficulty with. So we can integrate these two, you can end up getting the kind of improvement that I'm talking about. So the big problem is the interaction. And right now, it's very, very awkward. I mean, the keyboard is awful. And the next step beyond the keyboard, well, swiping, touching is a little better. Gestures will help. But until we can actually use our mind to communicate directly with the computers, and we're already starting to do that in very elementary ways, we're not really connecting these computers and people. But that's going to happen. And when it does, humans will be much more powerful because they will be exercising the parts of their brain that can only be done, at least for the next 50 generations, by human beings, and the machines will be doing the things that they want to do. So before we have a Her, we're going to have much smarter and more powerful human beings.
Okay. I know we could talk for hours and hours. The questions keep on coming in. But I think it's time to wrap up. Any final messages to the audience?
No, I can only tell you that everybody has been wonderful to me today. I'm so grateful, and I'm so glad that I was invited to Lithuania, and I can only say, ačiū, ačiū, ačiū. Thank you
It's
so
been a
much.
great pleasure. Thank you so much.